Yeah, greetings to you all, comrades. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us as usual. And today we are going to have another interesting conversation on equitable sharing of resources in Africa. And we are going to look at various contexts, but in the context of Africa unification. Because even if we propagate unity of our people, is unity of our people for the purpose of development. Because if we unite and the unity cannot bring forth development or improve our welfare of our people, then that is not it. So we are trying to look at how do we have a unified country or a continent whose resources are shared equally with all members of the society. And we're interested to look at the South African context because South Africa is also very interesting based on the demographics. The still presence of the whites, as if they never left, as if colonialism never ended. There are blacks, and the struggle for resources in the same South Africa is a big issue, where a majority of the blacks do not control resources as much as they so-called have independence, and the minority of the whites control everything else. But South Africa is a classical case where we have reached a level whereby even the so-called minority whites want to secede to form their country in the continent. That's very interesting. But apart from that, there's also other countries in the continent where we don't have whites, but you're all blacks. But we have blacks who assumed the role of the former whites in the colonial government, because during colonialism, the minority whites took control of majority of resources, means of production, and everything else. And when they left, the minority black took over that. So resources are still not even equally distributed across the continent. Even where we have blacks, we have billionaires increasing in the continent, and the poor are also increasing in the continent. And then you ask yourself, how do we unite these two divide? Is what actually Kwame Nkrumah dealt with a lot in his book, Class Struggle. There's still existence of classes within a society. Can the classes one day end? And how do we unite people beyond the classes? Or will we have still an Africa continental government we wish of still the haves and the haves not? So those are part of the few things we want to look at today and to deeply examine how these affect our unification as a continent and what must be done. So once again, thank you very much to those who have joined us, Brother Usu, Sister Mayales here, Sister Edesia, Sister Shaza, we have Jaranunaki, and to all those who are still coming, those who will be joining us, and all those who will be watching this recording, feel free to engage with us in this open conversation where we just want to hear what people think about this. And basically the key question is, how do we destroy this and what must be done? So once again, feel most welcome. And as usual, I don't have a startup presentation for myself, but I'll open up the floor for members just to pick it straight as we go deep into the conversation, straightforward without wasting much time. So yes, feel most welcome. And if you're ready to start us off, feel free to start us off. Thank you.
Brother Pigeon, can I ask if you could put the topic on the screen for us? Because I looked at it, I could do with refreshing it in my mind while we talk. Thank you.
Okay, let me do that. But anybody want to come in, maybe starting with the Jaranunaki, Brother Usu in South Africa, please feel free to start us off with what's going on in South Africa in regards to this context.
Yeah, I sent something to you. If you can post it,
For those
the
who,
PDF. I sent a PDF to you for, or I should resend it so that you can. I'm using the phone here now, so I can't upload anything.
okay, let me look at it.
Okay.
Wait, please, brothers, you can just go ahead as I'm trying to share your document.
Okay. Yeah. I wrote something. It's an issue I've been talking about for a long time. That you have a country with two nations in it, and the minority dominates the majority, which sometimes is more or less a paradox. And in view of that, and considering the state of affairs presently, a whole lot of blame has been going on um, about not just ANC, but entire uh, black people, if I should put it that way, that we are incompetent. We are not able to run country. Um, uh, South Africa, I had studied a lot about South Africa before I even came here. And the first time I wanted to come to South Africa was in the early 1980s. And then later on, it couldn't happen. Then I think it was 1993 that I made another second attempt, which I got to Nigeria. I couldn't continue. And then later on, after spending about 6 months in Nigeria, I returned to Ghana. And then I canceled the whole idea of coming to South Africa. But South Africa is, even at an early age, I mean, we have been following the trend of the struggle against apartheid from BBC, from VOA, and other sources. Fortunately, 2003, I arrived in a country that I have learned, I have heard so much. Despite the fact that some of my schoolmates were South Africans too, but it was the first time that I had the opportunity to arrive here in Johannesburg, and it was very warming experience. But then let us look at what I have to say. In fact, my first 3 months, I had a bit of, if I should say, the word shock. Shock in the sense that I could see difference between native South Africans and any other African. I mean, the point is somebody oppressed carry something, you see. So I could differentiate that, and it made me feel sad because the whole thing is I could see poverty. I could see that, but where I am living at the university, I mean, white people, other people are living well, but then the local people are not living well. So um, I started to, some things that I've learned earlier. I mean, it started to be confirmed to me that, oh, so this is true, this is true, this is true, this is true. But then um, I want us to look at what I have written, and then I will comment on it for other people also to come in. If somebody would volunteer to read it for me, please.
Let me read it if you have no problem with that.
Oh, okay.
Can I read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So this is a presentation by Brother Usu in regards to what we are talking today about equitable resource sharing, but is looking at the South African context. So South Africa, two nations in one state. It's about supremacy, tribalism, and the struggle for land and economic justice in comparative perspectives. The author is Brother Usu, and this authorship is about a review. I think you're quoting this towards sustainable peace reconciliation in Cote d'Ivoire, Africa Security Review. I think that's maybe what you're citing. Now, in the introduction, is that 13 years after the fall of apartheid, South Africa remains a deeply divided society. Politically, democratic economic segregation, the white minority, particularly concentrated in the Western Cape, continues to dominate land ownership and economic power, while the Black majority holding political office remain largely dispossessed. This paper explores the enduring supremacy of white elites, tribalism among English, Afrikaner, and Jewish community, the role of enclaves in Orania and Klein-Fontaine, and the ANC failure to redistribute land. It also draws comparative insights from Zimbabwe's radical land reform and Namibia's cautious market-led approach to illuminate the stakes and possibilities for South African native population. The background. The establishment of the Union of South Africa on 31st May 1910 was a significant moment in the enshrining white minority rule. This union formed through a pact between British colonial authorities and Afrikaner elites, amalgamated the Cape Colony and Natal with the former Boer republics of the Orange Free State and Transvaal under British sovereignty. Although marketed as a step towards national unity, it strategically solidified white settlers' dominance while systematically excluding Black South Africans, as well as colored and Indian population from citizenship and political life. The new constitution entrained racial exclusion, echoing the segregationist policy of colonial rule. That's according to Thompson 201, Debow, in his book Historized for 2025. Now, in this context, scholarly debates highlight the role of maize in South Africa, particularly concerning the peace and market participation. As violence shaped political alliances and created an economic void, a rising African class leveraged agriculture and transportation, challenging white dominance with their own maize supply wagons. However, by the late 19th century, the growth of capitalism and pro-white farmer policies hindered African competition, often overshadowed by the prevailing poverty of the majority. Majority Blacks grew and gained the first cotton ever sold on the Pietermaritzburg market, and they own at least 2 sugar mills, which they supplied from their own farms. The agricultural expertise was recognized internationally and out of dissatisfaction with mission. Schools, they initiated private school, hiring white teachers to impart essential commercial skills, enabling their children to become business owners rather than mere employees. This resilience and ambition highlighted the complexity of resistance against a backdrop of socio-economic marginalization. The rise of Cape independence, which is Capezit movement, in the Western Cape highlights growing division in the post-apartheid South Africa. Capezit supporters, mainly white Afrikaners, and Cape Colored seek to form an autonomous state, citing concerns over national governance, economic policies, demographic changes. Although described as non-racial, the movement is linked to fears around land reform, Black economic empowerment, and loss of historical privilege, and echoes the existence of exclusive enclave like Orania. Ultimately, Cape Zit reflects resistance to national transformation and integration. The white supremacy and economic control in the Western Cape. White South Africans, less than 8% of the population, continues to own the majority of South Africans' productive land. According to the Department of Agriculture, Land and Rural Development, white individuals and entities control over 70% of privately held farmland nationally. In the Western Cape, this concentration is even more pronounced, with white-owned agribusinesses, real estate farms, and financial institutions dominating the provincial economy. The ANC markets, based on land reforms policies, have failed to dismantle this structural privilege. The willing buyer, willing seller model inflated land prices and allowed white landowners to dictate terms, while native South Africans remain landless or trapped in informal settlement. Now, without secure tenure, they are excluded from credit system, inheritance, and even wealth creation. There's tribalism among whites, especially the English, the Boers, and the Zonists. Now, South Africa's white population is internally divided by historical rivalry. The Anglo-Boer War of 1880 to 1902 reflected a deep tension between British imperialists and Afrikaner nationalists, shaping the country's political landscape for decades. The English elites dominating mining and finance, but Boers control agriculture and rural administration. The Jewish community, many of whom arrived from East Europe in the early 20th century, established strong network in law, commerce, and media. While often marginalized by English and Afrikaner elites, Jewish South Africans also formed Zionist organizations, particularly in Cape Town, fostering ties with Israel and shaping communal identity. These internal divisions, though less overt today, continue to influence economic alliances and cultural enclaves. White enclaves on Orania and Klein-Fontaine. Orania, founded in 1991, is a self-declared Afrikaner town in the Northern Cape. It operates as semi-autonomous enclave, requiring applicants to demonstrate fluency in Afrikaners over Afrikaans and alignment with Afrikaner cultural value. With a population of around 3,000, Orania maintains its own currency, local governance, agricultural activity, and has been described as a white-only town by external observers. Klein-Fontaine, near Pretoria, follows a similar model. It restricts residency to Afrikaners and promotes cultural preservation through language, religion, and education. Now, both towns have been criticized by political parties like the EFF and ANC as threats to non-racial and social cohesion. Now, these enclaves reflect a broader resistance to integration and land reform. While defended as a cultural preservation project, they function as a stronghold of racial exclusivity and economic self-sufficiency, undermining the constitutional vision of a united South Africa. The issue of land disposition and the failure of redistribution. Now, land is the foundation of economic life. Under colonial and apartheid regime, Black South Africans were systematically dispossessed through laws like in the 1913 Native Land Act and the Group Areas Act. Past laws criminalize Black presence in urban areas, enforcing spatial apartheid and economic exclusion. But post-1994, the ANC promised land reform through restitution, redistribution, and tenure security, yet progress has been minimal. As of 2025, less than 10% of commercial farmland has been transferred to Black ownership. Now, bureaucratic delays, corruption, and elite capture have stalled reforms while millions remain landless. Poverty, unemployment, and crime are among native South Africans. Now, the consequences of landlessness are stark. Now, over 18 million South Africans live in poverty. Sister Ida, please help me look at the waiting room. Now, over
Yes, I've let
18
them
million
all
South
in.
Africans, over 18 million South Africans live in poverty, with Black communities disproportionately affected. Unemployment exceeds 32%, and youth joblessness is even high. Crime, especially violent and property crime, is concentrated in marginalized areas, driven by inequality and lack of opportunity. The white land, without land, native South Africans cannot build wealth. They cannot secure housing or even engage in productive agriculture. Now, the result is a circle of dependency, a frustration, and social breakdown. A spatial apartheid persists, with Black community relegated to peripheral townships, while white elites occupy the urban centers and rural estates. Comparative insights between Zimbabwe and Namibia. Let's look at Zimbabwe, radical redistribution and native empowerment. Now, Zimbabwe's fast-track land reform program, which is FTLRP, launched in 2000, forcibly transferred land from white commercial farmers to Black Zimbabweans. Though controversial and marred by violence, the program fundamentally altered land ownership. By 2013, nearly all white-owned farms have been expropriated or earmarked for redistribution. Over 237,000 households received land, totaling to more than 10 million acres. Longitudinal studies in Goromonzi, Masvingo, and Mvui shows that many A1 smallholders farmers have improved food security, diversified crops, and build local economies despite limited state support. Now, while elite capture and tenure insecurity remains challenged, many communities view the reform as restoration of dignity and ancestral time. Now, if you look at Namibia, on market-led reforms and persistence inequality. Now, Namibia adopted a willing seller, willing buyer model after independence in 1990. By 2023, only a fraction of the commercial farmland had been redistributed. Many rural, uh, many rural, uh, many rural
Namibia.
Namibians still live on commercial or communal land with insecure tenure, limiting their ability to invest or access credit. Urban landlessness is also severe, with informal settlement expanding rapidly. Some communities among the most marginalized consistently rank land access as their top priority, but remain largely excluded from reform process. The 1982 constitutional principles restrict expropriation and prioritize reconciliation over restitution, leaving many communities feeling voiceless and betrayed. Now, community perspective on land reform. If you look at Zimbabwe, for example, the community sentiment is pride, ownership, ancestral restoration. The empowerment level is moderate to high, but the key challenges they still face is elite capture and support gaps. If you look at Namibia, it's another story. It's about frustration, exclusion, and broken promise. The empowerment level is very low. The challenges they face include legal constraint, poor participation. If you look at South Africa, the community perspective is about disillusionment, rising anger, and stalled hope. The empowerment level is very low. The challenges they face is bureaucracy, elite capture, and weak will. Now in Zimbabwe, land reform is widely regarded as an act of liberation for the majority Black population, but despite its numerous flaws and ongoing challenges. The process, though controversial and often accompanied by economic and social upheaval, has led to the redistribution of land from a small white minority to thousands of Black farmers. For many, this reallocation represents a reclaiming of sovereignty and a rectification of colonial injustice, even as issues such as productivity, support, and sustainability remain hotly debated. In contrast, the Namibia's approach to land reform has been largely symbolic and, in the eyes of many, ineffective. Now, legal and institutional constraints, coupled with limited government support and poor participation from marginalized groups, have stemmed meaningful change. While land reform in Namibia carries tremendous symbolic weight, especially for those excluded during colonial and apartheid eras, the slow pace and limited scope of redistribution have left widespread frustrations and a sense of broken promises among the dispossessed. In South Africa, the promise of land reform remains mostly unfulfilled. More than 3 decades after the end of apartheid, the vast majority of arable land continues to be owned by a small, privileged segment of the population. Efforts to redistribute land have been hampered by bureaucracy, elite capture, lack of political will, which results in deepening disillusionment and anger among the majority. The persistent inequality and stalled hope underscore the need for a more inclusive, decisive, and just approach to land reform, one that moves beyond rhetorics and genuinely address the aspiration of South Africa's dispossessed. In conclusion, land is the cornerstone of liberation. South Africans remain a tale of two nations, one wealthy white and land rich, while the other poor, Black, and dispossessed. The ANC failure to redistribute land has perpetuated apartheid economic legacy. Enclaves like Orania and Kleinfontein, tribalism among the white ethnic group, and Zionists influence the Western Cape reflect deeper structural resistance to transformation. Comparative insights from Zimbabwe and Namibia reveal the radical reforms. While paired with community participation and support, can empower the dispossessed. Now, market-led approaches, by contrast, entrench inequality. Now, for South Africa, the path forward must be bold, must be inclusive, and must be rooted in justice. Land is not merely property, it's sovereignty, it's identity, and the foundation of freedom. Without it, democracy remains hollow. With it, South African native can finally become her whole again. This is now the reference of all the text that I was sharing with us. And this is actually the presentation that has been compiled by Brother Benyo Usu. I was reading on his behalf on the equal resource sharing, and to his focus majorly is on the land issue. Back to Brother Usu. Brother Usu? And welcome to members who have joined us, Elder Sam, Elder Glenn, and I've seen other members of join us. Sister Tapua, feel most welcome. We are having our conversation on equitable land resource sharing in the continent, and we're looking at the South African as a case study, but we'll also be looking at other contexts within the African setup. But Brother Husu's presentation in South Africa has also focused more on land as the primary resource that need to be shared equally. Yes, go ahead, Brother Husu.
Yeah, this is an extract from a bigger work, which is about 15 pages. But we can't use that big one here. It will be online maybe within about 3 days' time. Yes, having written this, it comes from my own experience living right in the center of poor people here in South Africa. Doing everything with them practically every day. I've experienced crime and all those things. So I stand understanding the situation just like somebody who is also born here. The only thing is that I wasn't here until I was here only after apartheid. But then we know how it is. At least having been here for 20 years, apartheid is still alive. So one can say that I experience apartheid every day. But what is important for me to actually make us come to to take note is how several occasions and many times people hear that South Africans are lazy. South Africans are lazy. And I have taken time to study that. But if you look at the background, you find that people were farmers. They were running transports. They were manufacturing in small scale and other things. The whites couldn't compete with them. And for that matter, they worked with the government and got a policy that will restrain the natives so that they will not be able to even have anything to do, let alone to compete with them. This is what I see that many of we Africans have bought into the white narrative that, oh, these people, they were lazy people, they didn't have anything, they were there. The same thing even in West Africa. They said that we were just like, we were walking without clothing until recently that information that are coming show that rather they came to rob us. So I can believe that the narrative I hear from white since I came here that black people are lazy, they are this, they are that. I decided that I have to get my own, I want to be eyewitness. See, I don't want to be told, but I want to see. And having seen what I want to see actually has made me to see how cruel some people can be, in the sense that somebody give you small space or give you space to share this what he has, share 50-50 with you. but then you took everything from the person, makes me fear such type of people. But what is important for us to note is the so-called failure of ANC, which normally is generalized as failure of native and black people. You see, if there's an English word they use hamstringing. Hamstringing means that let's assume that you are carrying something on your head with your hand holding it, and somebody is gripping the back of your legs with something, making it difficult for you to move. Because one thing, are you going to leave what you are carrying to break and turn to what whoever is trying to disturb you, or you want to carry it and move forward like that? This is the challenge. This is the challenge I see the situation in South Africa since I came here. That of course we may blame ANC, but the way I look at it, it's not like you have the full power to do as you like. ANC takes instructions. Everything they do, there is an influence from somewhere. More or less, they are just administrators. And for me, whatever I'm seeing happening today, as I have put in the text, no, it is in the bigger work, is that much of the rot is coming not at ANC time, but ANC came, they started to rather implement certain policies to correct corruption that was there before they came. In fact, I taught corruption when the time I was lecturing, corruption in South Africa. And corruption has been there from the English time until it came to the Boyers. They also had their share, enough as they want, empowered all their people, and ensured that even as they transition to ANC, they will never suffer. But unfortunately, it didn't happen like that for the natives. And the question is why? In fact, anybody that knows how white people operate would have no doubt that if a white person gives you something, a house to live in, and they are still living there, know that you don't have your freedom. You see, so taking all these things into consideration, of course, corruption is there. But the corruption that is there, it is not a new corruption. And there is a theory we call push theory. Push theory says that any problem that a public administration or public service may face, if you want to look at it not at the point that, or let's say, not at the present only, but you have to ask the question, what was it before? Because most of the time, it is not the present that actually is functioning, but previous problems, which comes like a floodgate open. It comes to push any reform that is being done. And of course, literature will tell us that there has been a lot up to date. Banks' money they transfer from the country before the transition, up to now, they refuse to make account for all those money. And isn't that corruption also? So the issue of the land matter actually requires a desperate approach to it, because as it's stated in the conclusion, it is not just having land to farm that people should have land. Land is your sovereignty, it's your identity. Actually, it's your soul. it's your everything. That is why somebody would leave from Africa or Asia, go and live in Europe. But still, even if it is 100 years, I think Sister Ida would acknowledge this, that you will still know that you have a village somewhere to go. But what about somebody who is in his own native land but doesn't have a hometown? Because the hometown is the property of somebody who came to settle there. Well, if I want to talk, I will keep on talking. But this is the situation South African face. It requires a radical action, which for me, that is where I would actually blame ANC. That the time they had the majority in parliament, in fact, they could have done so much, like the Zimbabwe did. Of course, Zimbabwe too, I know that it is not actually Zanu that actually made the move, but the traditional leaders actually were the ones who gave the authority to these ex-servicemen that they should embark on taking back their land. So the government has no say but just to watch and see it happen. But in our case, hey, it's quite different. And I think something desperate needs to be done. In as much as many are seeing it as too late now, the question remains as to, so long as South Africans don't have land, don't have home, how would they feel when they meet their fellow Africans coming from Zimbabwe, coming from Mozambique, coming from Kenya, coming from Ghana, coming from elsewhere, who come with pride, but they don't have that kind of pride in them? I mean, would that facilitate the kind of unity we want, whereby anybody can come into Africa and tax some land and say that I create a different country so that we are going to have about 60 countries in Africa if we are not able to intervene in the situation of South Africa? Well, let me end here. And then if somebody has any question or any comment to me.
Thank you, Brother Osu. I think you have reshaped our conversation to the key resource. You have moved our attention straight to the land. And yes, I didn't think big about the resource being the land, but actually, the primary source of wealth is the land. Billionaires
Of course.
like Dangote are billionaires because they have their refinery, but on where? On land. Where do they get their oil? On land. Where have they built whatever? They control massive piece of land, and that land has been the source of economic advancement, has been the source of their richness. And if you look at the continent across, the politicians own big lands. In Kenya, for example, the family of Jomo Kenyatta, the first president of the country, owned over 500,000 hectares of land. And if you look at the big businessmen, they have land. And in the land, they do production. So I think it's very important that if we have to unite, then there must be equality or equity in terms of the land and the redistribution of land as well, not only in South Africa, but even across the continent. But yes, I want to open this conversation for more members to share their thinking, whether they want to ask questions from Brother Usu, our presentation, or whether they want to chip in into this conversation. Brother Usu?
Yeah, you know, Dangote richness is not like Lotto. It's from the land. His father was a farmer. And it is true that Dangote also was selling farm products, I mean, harvested things, and then giving the population of Nigeria, and then maybe where he lives, they may be exporting to Niger, to other places like Chad. You see, so Dangote background is on the land. It's land that made Dangote rich. And I mean, most of these other rich people in Africa, I mean, Ghanaians in overseas, it is land that they mortgage. The family will mortgage the cocoa farm they have for them to travel, and then they go and work, and then they pay the money, and then the land gets back to them. So if you don't have land, in fact, to get, and that is why the whites know. They know it. That's why they first take the land from you. Because they want to make sure that you are not able to rise up again. And once they take the land, you are finished completely.
Thank you. So let's open the conversation. Anybody want to come into this conversation? Anybody want to share something? Feel free to come in. It's an open conversation across the continent, not specified in South Africa per se, but it's part of the case study we are looking at as well. You know, to the extent that the whites in South Africa want to have their country, just in the same South Africa. So anybody want to come in, please feel free. Sister Ida, please go ahead.
I sort of slightly take offense to the fact that you say the whites in South Africa want to have their land. When did they come to South Africa in the first place? But my comment is also that I hear that Mandela arranged a thing with the Europeans in South Africa, saying he wouldn't touch the land. And that is one of the reasons why nobody's gone after the land. So to me, I find it really, I find that, I think Brother Wusu is correct. Without land, there's absolutely no real freedom, and people have to. The Africans of all the country, all of Africa, need their land, and it's something we should be fighting for, constantly fighting for, because I don't know how South Africans can, white South Africans can claim they own land and own so much of it, and nothing is done. You know, it's just offensive. So I'll start with that and hope that others will continue. Thank you.
No, thank you, Sister Ida. You're asking a very interesting question. And when did they own the land? And Brother Glenn is also asking a question whether we have a data of the land owned by Europeans in Africa. But I think there was a data by Warren Want report in 2016, and especially the mining companies. And I think that data also included the hectares of land those companies were having in Africa, especially those companies listed in London Stock Exchange. But I think, yes, there's a need for us to do a proper research, if somebody is willing to do that, to have a clear data on how much land is owned by Europeans in Africa, whether they're in Africa or outside of Africa. And if anybody has an answer for that, please feel free to come in. Sister Tapua?
Brother Pigeon?
Elder Sam, let me get...
Can I
Sam?
just, yeah, can I just give the statistics that I have from a land audit of 2013? Whites own 72% of the land, the so-called coloreds 15%, Indians 5%, Africans 4%, and others and co-owned 4%.
Thank you for that. Brother Glenn, hope that might help, but I think you are asking to the bigger context of Africa as well. That I think will still require more research on that. But thank you, Elder Sam, for also providing us what is in South Africa.
The bigger picture in Africa, most places is land tenure. So this kind of feudal system whereby the land is your private property forever, it doesn't exist. But anybody can buy land for 100 years, and then it's still back to the owners, which is the traditional custodians.
Okay, thank you for
South
that.
Africa, which is different. It's only South Africa and maybe Namibia, which are different.
Okay, thank you for that. Sister Tapua, please come in. Sister Tapua.
Hello, everyone. Right, I'm going to start right from grassroots, because if we're going to talk about equal distribution of wealth, we need to kind of look at what point we say we now have equal distribution of resources. Because I live in a country that claims that land was redistributed, but the ordinary person in the street, the majority of Black Zimbabweans still live in what is called reserves, where they don't have, where they can be moved, where the white men said, we're going to put you in a place that is reserved, but it's only reserved for a while until we need it. So we have that situation prevailing. My position is, when we are discussing equitable distribution of wealth, let's not just look at government policies and what governments have claimed to have done. We need to be able to have case on the ground to see who has land. Because we caught a situation where we want to celebrate with the rest of the world. Farmers.
Sister Tapua, we have problem with your audio, or she has dropped. I
We've
think so
lost her.
because of the. I think because of network issue. Anybody want to come in?
Okay, let me answer Sister Ida first. Sister
Bosu?
Ida, yeah, Sister Ida, they came here, let's say they started coming in their numbers when there were wars in Europe, and then they wanted places to go, especially the Boyers were facing serious wars. So when Vasco da Gama and those people had said that they are placed here, which not many people are here, so from their report that they sent, there was a floodgate. In fact, it is just like modern day. People, there were contractors who would go and then load people in ships and they bring them here. In fact, there is a museum here. Now they changed the name. It used to be called Botreka Museum. And if you happen to have come here and you visit that museum, I mean, you will see that. I mean, I sometimes you can't imagine how the natives felt with the flag of white arriving ship to ship. You see, and now the claim is that this is biblical, but it has been religious that apartheid itself was actually formulated from the Bible, as in Genesis chapter 9. You see, it's part of the formulation of apartheid. So for them, they are looking at this place as something given to them by God. And that is the drumbeat at the moment that we are hearing, that this place has been given to them 5,000 years ago. So, see, so all these things also coupled with the Jews who are here and they are also homeless in Europe. You see, and now Africa has this kind of space. It's become a big problem. It's become a big problem that sometimes one doesn't know whether they should take that land and just stay there or what should happen. Yeah. So it's religious. It is. I mean, apart from that, what do we say? There are some strange claims being made. Some points are trying to say that they were here before any black person came, and it's just outrageous to hear such things. And then they post some of these things on social media too. You see, so it shows that they are not ready to let go. But my concern is that, you see, today in the world, we are mixed everywhere. So let people be humble to say that let us all live together. You can have your suburbs, you can have your places and live exclusively. No problem. But to create a different country when even the majority of the people in the country don't even have a place to do gardening. It's quite strange. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Thank you. Sister Tapua, are you back or you are out again?
I'm back. What I wanted to continue saying is, if we're not going to look at the ordinary person and what resource they have access to, we also need to look at what we call equal distribution of land in an African context, in the Ubuntu spirit. Because if we're going to be led by the West in terms of what they call equal distribution of land, if we look at the land ownership in the United Kingdom, for example, very few, I think it's about 5% or 10%, at that small number of percent of people who own the vast tracts of land. And for them, they don't even talk about equal distribution. But if we're going to talk about equal distribution of land, we're saying, what was it before? What should it be now? Because if we went to war with what we had in mind before 1890, and we are here today to land ownership as per our African perspective, that gives us a problem. Because, for example, I want to say, what do we need title deeds for? Because the land policy for the colonials was, you've got access to land for your lifetime. It's not giving someone title to land like the Kenyans are saying the Kenyattas have the rest of their lives for the
Sister Tapua, I can't hear you. Okay. Let's get to Elder Sam. Elder Sam, please come in.
Sorry, Brother Pigeon, I was still writing some information on the chat, but
Okay, please. If you wish to continue writing, is okay. If you wish to proceed with sharing, is also okay. Let me know.
okay, there's still time. Let other people contribute. Let me finish what I'm doing in the chat, and I'll come in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. General Unaki?
Keep terms, son of the league. That's it. What are you saying, my brother?
Are
What do you want me
you
to
willing
say?
to share your thinking in regards to this topic of equal distribution of resources?
Hey, I don't think white people are ever going to provide any equal distribution, because that is going to jeopardize their global elite plan. Their global elite plan is to make Western Cape a Zionist state. So if now we blacks are going to want our land, that means we're going to also take land from Western Cape and give to the blacks. So I don't think they'll ever agree to that. Instead, what they are busy doing, they want to take over Western Cape, which is a province of South Africa that is predominantly owned by white people in terms of land ownership and farms, and those grape farms, they make wines. The world knows about. Yeah, so, and that thing of Orani, there's a lot of things. Even we hear now, there's even Arabs and other races coming in South Africa, taking land, pieces of land from the homelands of the Bantu people and making enclaves from themselves. So we can see this thing is a mindset of human beings. There's always been like this. It is only us, the black people, who are still have this illusion of universal, rainbow nation, multi-cultural, what. It's only us who are confused. Other nations, the Asians, the Europeans, the Mexicans, they don't care about black people. They are trying to take land for their descendants, for their children. There's no Mexican who's gonna give land for a black person so that the Mexican will feed a black person's child before the Mexican feeds his own child. They'll never do that. There's no Chinese who's gonna feed a black child before the Chinese feeds their own child. Never happen. But we as blacks, we are feeding all the children of the world, and then we starve our own. That's why crime and a lot of things are happening. These youths that are robbing and smoking drugs, it's still our fault as the leaders because we don't fund them, we don't support them, we don't build institutions for rehabilitation centers, we don't uh, give pocket monies, and we don't give any money to the black children. All of our monies go to the whites and the Asians. You see. Same applies for the land as I close. The land here in South Africa is being sold to the Arabs, Chinese, you see. So that already tells us that other races are not interested in this constitution of South Africa that talks about South Africa belongs to all who lives in it. It's not talking about preserving the black people from extinction or anything. So my take basically is that if we as blacks don't start to look for ourselves as blacks only, like Marcus Garvey said, buy black, be black, drink black. If you don't start practicing those things, then the AI by 2030 is gonna do what it's supposed to do. And unfortunately, it will take its toll. Thank you.
Thank you, General Nunaki. Sister Shaza, anything you want to comment on this topic?
Yeah, greetings. No, I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Mason Bridge, kindly introduce yourself and let me know if you have anything to share in regards to this topic. Mason Bridge, Lagos, kindly introduce yourself and let me know if you have anything to share. Okay. Elder Sam, now I can come to you, but before I come to you, let me share my thinking first because I know you're working on some data. Now you see, the issue of land in various contexts as a key resource. Our African life revolves around the land. Before computers, industries came, all our African entire life was about land. And inheriting a land from our family was the biggest thing somebody could appreciate. And that's why we had to acquire land by inheritance. In fact, before even we come to buying land, it was a foreign thing to us. To hear that somebody was buying land in traditional African society was something very foreign. And to hear that somebody was landless was also nowhere. Nobody was landless. In some contexts, land as a source of production belonged to the community. Some other few days ago, I was having Sister Agnes from Sudan in Kenya here, and she told me up to date, there's no private ownership of land in South Sudan. In fact, the land belongs to the community and the custodian is the chief. So if you want to do agricultural production, you go ask the chief to allow you to have a portion where you can do production. So the land is not in the hands of any individual. Now, if you look at land, when you talk of any resources that come out of it, In African setup, we could either plant or graze animal or even fish along the lakes. The entire livelihood of Africans relied on the land. And majority of Africans, or the entire Africa community, were all agriculturists. That's why Africans are agriculturists automatically, because it is in us. When I was young in the village, we could plant pineapple, we could plant sweet potato, we could plant maize, sorghum, millet, peanut, no, you call them groundnut, and we even could plant some other fruits like mango and everything else. In fact, to some extent, when I was still in a very early age, we could send mango. We could actually go and take mango to the market to sell and get money for our family. So the biggest capital in African community was land. Now, the conquest, or even about slavery, or the enslavement period, the African taken out of Africa, they went to work on a land in the farms, either the sugarcane farms and the plantations, even in enslavement period. And they were working on land to produce wealth that the Europe and the West has. So all the resources that either the Europe use now to build roads, build whatever, what you want to talk about, came from the strength and the sweat of our ancestors. And the profit from that build bridges and everything else, because land was the only place where you can get some value. Whether it was mining, you do it on land. If you take it back during colonialism back in the continent, the clear intention of a white man all along was land control. They came with the Bible, they came as explorers. Probably they were just exploring how much land we have, how fertile and which one is right to conquer. Then they came with the Bible to take our minds away from our material wealth, which was land, to what you call heavenly wealth. So we forgot about our production of land and we left the land to them. Basically, when they sat down in Berlin to divide the territory, what were they dividing? It was the land. They're dividing African land. Whatever you call territory is African land. So they were cutting African land into pieces. Well, in the background, we were left for gospel, preaching, and being more spiritual than protecting our land. And up to date, when the whites took over the land, they divided into so-called territories. That was the beginning of takeover of land from our either chiefs or our customary law into their law, the English law. They came to define a state. They gave it a territory and a kilometer square. And now, everybody who owned land in our so-called now countries, who never required any title deed to show that the land belonged to them, now had to require that title deed from the government, the colonial government. The colonial government that did not own that land in the first place and did not consult the people when they were taking over the land in their Berlin Conference and distribution of our land. Now they were custodian of what you call now a title deed. Now title deed move our land ownership into private. So everybody, those who had the muscles, could then seek title deeds. And majority of the initial chiefs, either the kings, got land from the white man that the white man took just by the Berlin Conference. So they were given big land and distribution of land. Then they go to a government to get a paper, called a title deed, a paper. Now that shows that the land belongs to you. Paper which you never had all along. And now an individual, based on their muscle, could have a paper that could give them kilometers of land and hectares of land. Now we took land into private ownership. Now, when land moved to private ownership, that was the beginning of inequality in a society. Because when now a portion of the community or a portion of somebody in a community now has the whole land where the community stays, it means they control the means of production. And when they control the means of production, it means they become richer and wealthy. In Kenyan context, you could go ahead to mention various farms. For example, the multinational firms that took land in the name of 99 years of leasing. I grew up in a tea farm, multinational tea farm called Finlay's Company. Next to Finlay's, there's a Unilever tea farm. Next to Unilever, there's a Williamson tea farm. Next to Williamson, if you move to Rift Valley, there's Lord Delamere's flour company. Go up a bit, there's Kakuzi Company. There's Del Monte Company. Go to Sisal. There's a lot of white multinational companies that own tracts of land for agriculture. How did they get the land? Their colonial government, but then gave them the land. And they were given a paper from their colonial government. Then they claimed that they leased the land for 99 years. They leased it from who? From their colonial government that was controlling the continent, not from us as Africans. And that has created inequality in the society. Now, when colonialism ended, the initial politicians in the first government became colonial in their mind. And they never took back our land. We got independent, but land remained with them. So after 99 years, for example, in Kenyan context, I'm told in 2013, most of the land lease of 99 years were over. What happened? The politicians transferred the ownership of the land in their name, not back to the community, because that land was taken from the community. They transferred the multinational land in their name and retained the multinational names as the company. And they claim that they had renewed the 99 years lease. Well, in reality, they are only using the name of a white man in the company, but the land now belongs to them directly, the black elite politicians. Now, in the period when the colonials were leaving Kenya, for example, because they'd taken a lot of land and the procedure of land redistribution was very hard because now they brought an element of individual ownership rather than communal ownership. Now, how to redistribute land to individuals became an issue. What they did, it's being said that they set up a circle, or cooperative, where the Germans and the British put some money where the community individuals could go borrow the money and buy the land. So the land which was yours, now you're going to buy through the money that was left as a loan in some cooperatives. Now, what finally happened is that the first politicians in the first government decided not to give this money to the community. They took the money to themselves and also took the land without buying it. And in situations where they bought it, they were the people who are writing the title. So they could say, I buy it for 100 shillings. And they have a paper for it. So they produce their own paper from the government to own the land. And up to date, we have squatters in Africa. We have reserves in Africa. We have refugees in Africa. And yet, we have African politicians with up to 500,000 hectares of land. Some land lie idle, the animals are grazing or sleeping on, while people are poor in slums with no land at all. And therefore, the only equalizer in the community is the land. The only equalizer. If you look at the report on war on want, the British multinational companies in any country of Africa own big tract of land in the name of mining and mining field. Big tract. Look, for example, in South Africa. If you Google today the top 10 richest people in Africa, you'll not find a black South African in that list. They are whites who are called from South Africa, and they own big tracts of land in the name of minings, whatever. So it's a high thing that you need to think deeply. But to the audacity that even some whites in South Africa now think that they can own a country and take the land out of that to own a country, to call it their country, is very interesting. And that is the level of arrogance this has reached. The level of arrogance this has reached. To an extent now somebody want to claim a land, an independence in your land, to call it a country and their country. It's very hard times we are in. But permit me to pause here and allow Elder Sam to come in. Elder Sam?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Brother Pigeon. And I think members, I don't have to repeat what Brother Pigeon has said. I think he has said a mouthful and spot on correct information that he has shared with us. This is the reality. And I think the bottom line that people must understand is that South Africa was never free from colonialism. I think that is the bottom line. And I want us to be brave on this platform. If you are an organization, a liberation movement, and you are formed and you go to up to over 100 years fighting for the liberation of your people, and even when some form of not even defeat, but some form of resolving that struggle still makes you to be in power for 30 years, and your people are still the most brutally exploited, the most dehumanized people in the world comparatively, then there's something wrong with you. You are not a liberation movement. And this is the important thing that members on the platform must understand. The oldest liberation movement on the continent sold out its people and its soul. The ANC has lost even their soul. And we must call this spade a spade. We must not call it otherwise, because then we will never make revolution. It is only when we face this reality and say they were, you know, in 1959, when the PAC was formed, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe said the African National Congress are no longer within the ranks of the liberation movement, back in 1959. And this is the reality that we are facing. The only challenge that we have in South Africa is that those crop of leaders like Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, Stephen Bantu Biko, who came after him, and the rest of them, you can call Unkuputse Ture, you can call Tsietsi Mashinini, you can call all these mighty warriors that fell. Unfortunately, they died in prison in Robben Island, most of them, or outside Robben Island when they were already poisoned and when they left the prison. And some of them were later bombed. Others were killed in prison like Steve Biko. So the reality is, brothers and sisters, until we agree that we are not liberated, because, you know, colonialism did not only take our land. They never came with any land when they came to Africa. They never came with any cattle, sheep, goat, anything. They came in sheep. Most of them were suffering from scurvy, from all those routes, the waters they traveled in. They were ill, they were dying, and our people harmoniously welcomed them and gave them food, the water, and healed them. But this is the repayment that we got. And even today, nobody wants to accept that they robbed us of our motherland. And until we do that, brothers and sisters, we must close shop. We are only talking. The reality is we must call it a spade, and then we must criticize even parties like the Pan-African Congress, who today have joined the ANC in this so-called GNU. The fact of the matter is they are also collaborating with the enemies. And Brother Pigeon has spelled it out. It is the multinational corporations that are owning basically the whole land in South Africa. So I want to conclude by saying we need to stand up now and make revolution if we want to make revolution. But if we want to talk and just talk, it will remain this situation. And that is why we are not moving an inch in South Africa, because the so-called frontline leaders have collaborated, have capitulated, they have written their own country and everything that belongs to them to the former colonial masters. And we are still controlled by Europeans or what you can call in true fact neo-colonialism, because this is what has happened. The real colonialist has just moved back, maybe home, but they have total control of the country using our own brothers and sisters. So my conclusion is that true leaders, true freedom fighters, true liberators must fight first to decolonize the mind, not to accept any mediocrity that we are seeing, not to accept this. You know, Sister Tapua is having a problem with equal redistribution. This should happen. This should happen. The land must go back to its rightful owners. Everything that we own must go back. And then we must equally share it with everyone. You know, Sobukwe put it well. In a free Africa, anyone who identifies himself as an African, who pledges to pay his only loyalty to Africa, that person will become an African, because then even if the color of his skin, the shape of his nose will be as irrelevant as nothing. But then we must share equally what the continent has for us. And this is as simple as that. If people can understand, you know, Sobukwe put it very well. He said, here is a tree rooted in the African soil, watered by the waters from the rivers of the soil. Come and sit with us under this tree and become one of us, and let's enjoy what is under this tree. And this, for me, is basic what must happen in Africa. And we cannot compromise. We dare not compromise. 300 years, you know, brother, who used to say, they say South Africans are lazy. Over 300 years of naked brutality, exploitation, manacled in shackles, imprisoned, killed in death, killed in farms. What do you expect those people to have? And then they go into a very brutal struggle of liberation, and they came out of that in the shape that they are. And you still go on saying they are lazy. Those people have been brutalized. Those people have been dispossessed of everything that belongs to them. So they are like zombies. And this land that we are talking about now is flooded by drugs, is flooded by anything that you can call. So our people are like almost like zombies. So until true revolutionaries stand up and say enough is enough, then we must close shop, brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Sam. Thank you so much. I think you've spoken well, because we cannot sit as Africans after so many years of independence to sit back, watch some few whites trying to claim a country in Africa and a land in Africa to be their land. We cannot. We cannot. And I think the situation of South Africa, as I've read with what Steve Bikos talks about, we cannot integrate when we are not equals. When one side of the community exploits the other, there's no true integration. And therefore, for the last, since 1910, when they declared the state of South Africa, up to date, one community has shown very clearly that they are not interested to share a country and a land they found with the people they found there. And that is not even their choice to make. And I think this so-called integration, and we say, and I think what Idi Amin the one day saying, is that we are not racist, but we cannot allow one group of persons not to recognize us people enough, not to treat us as equal enough. We cannot allow that in our continent. If they're not ready to treat us as equals, if they're not ready to respect our rights and our land, then we equally don't need any respect from them. So I think that must be clear. So this political entertainment of even the marriage you are having ANC with the rest is trying to give these people too much. There is no, in any Western country, where they even give African any space to imagine getting out of any country in that. So I think the problem we have, and we must see what you can do. Elder Sam, I know what has been said, that some of the liberation movement have been sold out, and they have sold out. But will we sit back every day to watch them selling out and complain? Because when they sell out and they get the benefit, that benefit make them walk around, and everybody, including now who you are complaining about PSC, want to come in and enjoy the benefit. They forget the fundamental struggles and the foundations of a country. And denying people a land is the worst crime you can do to them. Because a person with no land is who? Is homeless. While in our community, no one lacked land and no one had in excess. But today we have people in excess and other people lack. Not even the whites in South Africa, even in countries like Kenya and other countries around. And therefore, yes, let me give other more members who want to come in. We are still having around 24 minutes to go. Please ensure that as you say a word to this topic, I'll give you all opportunity to say something. I'm seeing Brother Uso hand has been up, and please, I request everybody, if you can be able even to say a word to this. You cannot afford to just be silent on the land. Because I know you have a land somewhere, you've bought a land somewhere, you're looking for a land somewhere, and therefore you know the value of that. And you know the value of each person having something. It's very disheartening in Kenya here, where with the support of the GSC and Elder Glenn is here, we are trying to help a Mamau elderly woman who fought in the forest for 6 years for the independence of Kenya, who rose up to the rank of a brigadier in the forest. And then when she came out of the forest, despite of other issues, the land that she was fighting for with freedom, up to date, not only her, but the majority of Mamau veterans have no land at all. No land at all. This old woman, almost at 100 years, is living in a rental house. The person who fought for the land. And the white man is not here, but you see the blacks of his skin taking over the land that she fought 6 years in the forest for, and she has none. And she's being told to go buy now the land if she wants. The land that was taken to her, the land that she went to fight for, the land that made her sacrifice her life for 6 years, and the white man was gone, and the black man is having now that land, and they request her to go buy the land if she wants a land. The tragedy we have today. Before even we blame so many things, before even we go out, that woman asked me a typical question. If you're telling me that the white man want to pay me, how can that white man pay me and I was killing the same white man? And the country I was fighting for cannot even give me a hectare or a fifth of what I can call land alone, leave alone anything else. So we own a country where we blacks, each other, don't treat each other equal. We are happy to have thousands of acres and see our fellow black have nothing at all. Then you want to claim that you are one people? We want to claim that you are united and moving forward? We still have to work on that. Brother also, please come in.
Yes, okay. I hope you can hear me. Yeah. Yeah, Sister Tapua, it is still on. Um, for me, like one author I read whilst I was preparing this, you see, the matter that we cleared Zimbabwe from the dangers South Africa face today, that alone, the rest can be dealt with locally. And I know that with most of our modern people too, they develop this job mentality and those things, which makes them not even willing to go back. If you look at the situation in Zimbabwe, let us try to see what change will come, because the imposition of the sanctions also brought a whole lot of different issues, which I know that ZANU had not got the brains to. It was an advantage for them considering Cuba, but they couldn't make it. Yeah, so let's put that. The next thing is, um, like uh, Brother Sam is saying. In fact, I always tell people that I want to leave South Africa. The reason is that if I don't leave, I'm going to explode somewhere, and then maybe I will be arrested, because the whole situation needs a radical action. There is no way apart from radical action. Uh, let's say that there's no liberation at all. So what next? We need to liberate now. That is the only thing left now. The other thing is, history is not taught to our children.
Tell you, the most dangerous whites today are the Zionists in SA. In fact, the Zionists are different from the Jews, as much as I've been informed about that. The Zionists are Jews, but then they are a different Jew class with a different ideology and mindset. And for them, when they come to your territory, the only thing they want is to capture. And because they don't have land, they don't have their own place. So wherever they see that the opportunity is, and there are a lot of them in South Africa here, with all kinds of systems, a greater portion of the economy. And once the economy grow, they use that to take control. In fact, we saw that in Germany, and which causes a whole lot of issues that led to what happened, which we all know, you see. So for me, we need to begin to enforce the teaching of history to our children, and it should be precise to say that, look, this is our state. Many South Africans don't know that there are people who have had farms before. You see, they don't know that they were actually the people that were in operation. Let me put it that way. So how come that they were turned around and swerved in such a way that they have become like, excuse me to say, like useless people? And that when I meet whites, and when I meet a white person, what he will tell you is that, oh, you are good, but these ones, they are, you see, it's something that hurts me. It's something that hurts me, because I know why they are poor. And somebody is poor doesn't mean that the person is lazy. They are structural poverty, which is the most much poverty that we see across. The other thing is Asia. You see, as Africa, we are loose, and that ties to the teaching of history. We are so loose that people that actually colonize us, we still trust them. Asians don't trust them. So they put guard. You can't go to Asia, become a citizen, and a white man, you just want land and they give it to you. So why is it that in Africa, we are so open to anything at all? And that is another issue that I think whether our traditional leaders or the politicians won't do anything, but then we need people that will work on this matter, that we don't need to trust too much in this present time that we are seeing Gaza. Yes. The last thing I would want to say is yeah, I think I have said it. It's still education that we are still on the same things they taught us. And we are teaching this to our children, to our grandchildren, and it is going and going. Nothing is being done because we trust. And once we continue to trust this white man and his education, the churches and whatever, we have nowhere to go. They will take everything from us, especially in South Africa and a place like Namibia. From other information that is coming out these days, I mean, they have a clear-cut plan and they want to execute it and take everything for themselves. We know their behavior. They are selfish, they are cruel, and we can add on and add on. We know them. And the suffering they had in Europe, because of the system that didn't help them, they want to use that onto other people who even welcome them into our territories. And I think it is time that maybe people like Elder Sam and others work together in a secret way. It shouldn't be something exposed, for a strategy to raise another liberation battle. That will be the only way, because it's running out, time is running out, and they are also pushing that within Trump time, they can use Trump to actually achieve what they want to achieve. And it will affect the whole Africa, as we've already mentioned, that how can we integrate, and then we have South Africa, or some people in down here who say that we are not going to be part of you because of our color.
Okay, thank you, Brother Osu. It's the last minutes we are having, actually 14 minutes to go. And I'm requesting anybody who want to share something in this topic, please unmute yourself and proceed. Anybody? Those who have spoken, those who haven't spoken, those who have something to say, please just unmute yourself and share with us what you want or what you think in regards to this topic. If you're not able to do that, also use the chat room. Anybody? Yeah, Sister Tapua, please try again. I know you've been having network issue. Sister Tapua, your network is still not better. You keep trying, we see. Just keep trying.
Okay.
Sister Tapua, we can't hear you. Unless if there's somebody who can confirm if you can hear Sister Tapua. Anybody? Is she audible on your side?
Hear her. We can't hear her.
Okay. Sister Tapua, please keep trying, or you can use the chat. Now that your audio is not that clear, kindly use the chat. Okay. Anybody who want to share something? Yes, Sister Ida?
I want to share, but I think that I will get us banned. But at the same time, let me try and put this as diplomatically as I can. I think that calling the Zionists, Israeli Zionists, is it we actually being polite to them. These are the very people who wanted to have a Hitler statue in Israel. And to tell you the truth, I think that it's time people started calling the Zionists something else, something even worse, which, because I don't want to have this, because I think we've had an important conversation this evening, I am going to bite my tongue and not name them for what I think they are. But at the same time, I think that we should see the fact that they want so badly to put their are in South Africa and want so badly to spread their influence there. We should take note and we should fight really hard to say, this land isn't your land, you know, it's not your land, go away. And I think that's the nicest I can say. And I think I need to keep quiet just because I think this has been a really important conversation we've had today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Eda. Anybody else who want to share something? We are in our last chance. Elder Sam?
Brother Pigeon.
Hello.
Brother
Hello,
Pigeon.
Elder Sam?
Yeah,
Yes, Elder Sam?
my small addition, you know what Sister Ida is saying, without diverting from the South African situation. You know, what Israel is doing in Palestine is shocking. That the world is standing akimo. Nobody wants to move a finger against what Israel is doing in Palestine. I mean, after all the genocide that has taken place, even now Israel is still bombing Palestine. And the world is standing at attention doing nothing. And this must tell us a lot, brothers and sisters. And that is why it is so despicable that leaders in South Africa are allowing fuel that is running the machinery of Israel, like coal and energy that they are sending to Israel, while they are saying they are fighting and they are standing against Israel in support of the Palestine. The South African parliament took a decision pushed by the EFF to say they must close the embassy of Israel. That decision was taken last year. President Ramaphosa kept on saying, I'm looking at it. Another year, another election is coming. Nothing will happen in South Africa against the Israelis. And this should be the reality that we understand, that these leaders are captured, these leaders are in the hands of the imperialists, and they will not liberate us until we liberate ourselves. Thanks.
Thank you, Elder Sam. Brother Sokiri?
Well, really, thank you so much for this interesting topic. And as you were discussing about one of the most valuable resource, especially land, we find that land is of great value because land is not growing, but the wealthy population keep on growing that need to be supported actually by the same piece of land. And what is beating my logic specifically in my country, South Sudan, over recent days about the implications of conflicts in Israel and Palestinians. It had been there for many years, and there is that gesture whereby Israel's wanted Palestinians to be relocated out of Gaza so that they take control of Gaza. And there had been a series pops of messages in social media that South Sudan is signing a memorandum of understanding so that the Palestinians who are in Gaza can be relocated to South Sudan. It is some of the things that scare me so much because it is like compromising with our security in the country, but possibly the only asset that we have in our country, which is land, will also be in a great it will be in great danger that those who are foreigners will be in position to take control of our resource in South Sudan. Now, specifically, when we talk about issue of land,
Brother Sokiri, we've lost you. Okay. Anybody want to come in? We are now 6 minutes to go. Anyone want to share something? We're in the 6 minutes to go. Sister Ida?
I wanted to say that I think Sister Tapua is always asking us, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? We need to do something. And if it's not her, Sister Grace saying that. And I think that General Ankram, I was on to call it Ankara, and Anunnaki, sorry, General, has told us something today about the young people and the fact that, they have, what do they get? They don't even get pocket money. And I think that maybe if we can, and we're always hearing about not just the Gen Zs, but the fact that it's the young of Africa that are the biggest majority. And I wonder what we can do that would help them in some way know that people realize their struggle, appreciate their struggle, and want to help them. I think even if somebody has something to say for a minute or two about the young and how they can be helped, to me, I think that would have we've had a conversation on land issues. How can we help the young? That I think that's what I'd like to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Tapua, one last time, please try before we come to an end.
Thank you very much. I think what we can do is tell our youths the truth, the very truth, nothing but the truth. Because we've got to tell them that we're ashamed. We've got to tell them that we are ashamed of where we are. Because if we tell our kids that this is what we fought for, this is where we are, things are not working, then we are passing the baton. We cannot pretend. The table that was presented on statistics about Zimbabwe and land, where Zimbabweans express pride in the fact that they got the land. I am not sure about that. I think we need to change that, because unless we change that, we cannot change the situation that we're in. We need to be truthful. We need to stand up and say, this is this is where we wanted to go, but we're not there yet. It's your turn. Because right now, they're actually listening more to America and Trump and what's going on, and the rap musicians and everybody else continuing to pollute their minds whilst we're pretending that we're in power when we're not. Let's prioritize. Let's look for someone like Traore and have a narrative around him that opens our eyes or opens our children's eyes. Because I think we need to sow a seed in them that will make them rise up. Otherwise, we won't win the battle. Thank you.
Comrades, I want to thank you. This conversation was very important to us. That as much as people discuss wealth, finance, vehicles, houses, jobs as part of the resources, this conversation has narrowed down to the fundamental basic resource, which is land. And in the context that the land in Africa is almost the whole entire Europe, China, and the rest put together. And the research and statistics that are coming out that we have 60% of Africa land that's arable, I think we cannot walk away from what Sister Tapua is pointing out and to answer to the question of what Sister Ida is speaking to. The struggle for liberation, unification, and development of Africa is an intergenerational war and struggle. And the best each generation must do is to prepare the next generation to pick up the struggles. And the fact that we might not be able either to make it in our lifetime do not make us not to continue fighting for it. Majority of our younger generation today, just to speak to them, are educated in Western life of education. And fundamentally, they are elites, but with capitalist mentality. Some of them don't even want land. They want their laptop, and that's enough. Some of them don't even want to go home in the villages. They want to stay in the cities and watch Netflix, and that is it. Some don't even value that land. And therefore, we must re-educate the younger people that if all the things they must protect and liberate is the land, that the land is the only thing they can pass to the next generation. And the land is the only thing that they can use to produce companies, produce machines, produce anything they want is from the land. Until the younger generation know the value of what land is, they will always watch people take our land without putting a struggle on it. So, yes, to Sister Ida, is that our younger people must be taught the value of the land. They must be taught the price our ancestors paid to fight for this land and to die for this land, and the need for them to protect with the utmost love and life the land they have today, because that is what makes us be who we are. So we might not, as I always say, end this conversation, but we must take this conversation forward to the younger people, to our fellow Blacks, to our community, to our meetings, and in any informal discussion we have. We must continue propelling this conversation that we must protect our land. And that land is what gives us freedom. Without land, there's no true freedom. There's no true liberation. So, comrades, what I'll say that we must commit to ourselves is to keep educating ourselves and our family and our friends and our kids. And we must commit ourselves to fight for our land, no matter what it takes. Because as some say, it's so unfortunate that in the continent today, some have land, some don't have. How did that happen? Because initially, nobody owned land. We all own land as Africans. But today, some have, some don't have. And we must fight for equal redistribution of that land as the first struggle for us. If you're in a country where people squatters, foreigners, reserves, fight for their land. And that is the best struggle we can give forward. So with that, I know we are almost 2 minutes past our time. I'll allow Sister Ida to... Sister Ida, please just close it for us now that Brother Kwame is not around.
Well, I thank you all. And I do think we've had an important conversation tonight. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday, or else next Saturday we'll continue. The struggle continues. Good night, all. Thank you.
Yeah, good night all. And next Saturday, we were looking at discussing the indigenous African education system, the indigenous knowledge system. So we want to look at that in next Saturday. But also remember, it's Steve Biko Day on 12th, and we have Nkrumah Day coming on 21st. So you all have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Brother Pigeon,
Bye-bye.
everybody on the
Bye-bye.
platform.
Good night.